Welcome to the 42284 podcast in downtown beautiful Sunfish, Kentucky. It's been a few weeks since we have recorded an episode. Lots happened. Last time we recorded, we had Tom Pohlman in here, which after going back and listening to that, I did not ever say his last name, so we got sidetracked. But Tom Pohlman was our last guest. He did a fine job. Had a lot of good stories out of Tom, but that was the night the hurricane was hitting. Hurricane Helene was hitting over in the Carolinas, and lots happened since then. Brandon, you went over.
Yeah, I hauled some equipment over. We've had crews over working. I think at one time we had over 150 from Kentucky over there working. Our district sent 10-man crew the first round, and then they've since swapped out another 10-man crew, and I think going to send a third crew.
So they are still actively working over there.
They are, yes.
That's something. I saw today where they think they're going to have 2 lanes of I-40 back open by the first of the year.
Well, they brought some of our guys back through there, but it was, I think, Tennessee Highway Patrol escort through there. It was only certain.
So they're easing them around the inner
something to that effect. We didn't get to go that way, and I didn't come back that way. But I think when they swapped crews, some of them came back that way. So
between that hurricane and the other hurricane, we had several crews. All of our contractors just about left and went to one state or the other, and then we actually sent some of our internal crews down into Florida. But I had linemen come back that have been chasing those storms for 20, 25 years and say they cannot believe the damage over there, just the amount of the stuff washed away, the towns and stuff. And you said you saw some of that.
I saw some stuff on Highway 25 running down through there. And then I unloaded equipment in Black Mountain, which we were talking about. You follow the guy who has the Silverados there.
Yes, Jason Ward. If anybody wants some good comedy on Facebook, look up Jason Ward.
I think he's on TikTok too.
Yeah, he's the guy who, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, he went through a Starbucks drive-thru with his family and ordered Starbucks like Carl Childers from Sling Blade, which is hilarious, right? And he terrorizes his wife with Nerf guns, and she's a good sport about it. I think her name is maybe Amy.
So looking,
but they own Silverados, which is a venue, and if you follow that Oliver Anthony, they're friends, and he plays there some. But you went by that, right?
Looking back at the map, I didn't drive right by it, but I went on the street. I could have turned left and drove by it.
Right.
But we unloaded equipment there just outside of Black Mountain, just outside of town, and I came back right down through, I guess, the hardest hit part of Swannanoa, and it was bad. It was bad.
Bub, I know you was over in eastern Kentucky when they had their flooding a lot. Is it comparable, or is it
more widespread? I think, in my opinion. Of course, I was in a semi. I didn't get to see a lot of it. I didn't get to get out and just see, but I think it's just a lot more widespread. I'm gonna say there was places in eastern Kentucky that were hit as hard, but
just not as much of it.
Not as much. It's like bigger areas too. Eastern Kentucky, you had a mountain, a little flat spot, and a mountain, and everything was gone in that little flat spot. Over there you've got
acres and acres.
A big flat spot, and and it's going to take years for them to recover, because you take any kind of, let's just, for example, any kind of farming over there, you've got dirt and sand piled up over top of if you're a cow-calf operation, what do you need? You need grass.
Well, yeah, and if you had topsoil, it's gone.
And if you had topsoil, it's gone, or it's under inches of dirt, sand, rock. It's
debris.
Just crazy debris.
Yeah.
One of those lakes over there, I seen a video, and
I seen that too.
Debris.
Looked like you could have walked across it. Yes. I'm sure you couldn't.
Yes.
But it was that.
I saw today where they had added another person to the death toll over there.
Well, I don't know that they'll ever know for sure.
Right.
It's.
Yeah, we have tornadoes here, and we have a lot of rain and occasional ice storm, but when you get something like that, it is devastating.
Well, houses with dirt up to the eave of the roof.
Yeah.
That's just.
I saw where Greg Martin, who's the guitar player for the Kentucky Headhunters, he posted a GoFundMe today for a person I didn't know, he was a musician over there, but this guy is like 80, and his wife's battling stage 4 lung cancer, and they're raising their grandkids, and one of the kids has got some medical issues. But the only way they survived was they got in their van right before it happened and went up the mountain. But when they come back, actually they were trapped up there for several days, and when they came back, had nothing.
Yeah.
And they're fighting these cancers and these illnesses, and they have nothing. So
one thing that I really enjoyed that you showed me was the signs that the locals had made, and it was.
Yeah, there were some signs put up by some locals, by some schools and stuff, thanking KYTC for being there, helping, and I
those
thought
people are appreciative.
Well,
anything and everything.
They North Carolina DOT guy told some of our guys. He said there's going to be places along the road where people are set up feeding people, and they want you to come in there and get lunch.
Yeah.
They want to feed you.
Can you imagine? Something always kind of made me think when we were chasing storms over the years, and we went into hurricane areas and tornado areas. But can you imagine how that was if that happened 75 or even 100 years ago? If you came in and your town got wiped out, you didn't send KYTC across the state or the country or linemen anywhere. I mean, you just dealt with it.
Sure.
Yourself and the locals.
Right.
And it's just the amount of help people gets pretty overwhelming. So.
Yeah. I'm glad that we sent help. That some were able to go help. Those people definitely need it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So
who's your man there?
Well,
Tell me who your man is.
Hey, I've looked forward to this.
Can you do him justice?
I've looked forward to this.
I don't
As an
know.
introduction?
I don't know if you can intro him and do him justice.
I've looked forward to this. This episode, we're doing this for the ladies. That's who we're doing this episode for.
This one goes out to all the single ladies.
All the single ladies. Are you single?
Yeah.
All right. So all the single ladies, we have a
world's sexiest man.
Well, a Gulf War, Desert Storm veteran with us today, who is the reigning world's sexiest man for 40 years now?
Yeah.
Maybe 45.
No longer than that, actually.
I mean, when I was a kid, I knew he's the world's sexiest man. We'd be at the grocery store, and people would have their sexiest man alive cover, and I was like, Uncle Ralph is the world's sexiest man.
Well, he had it on his license plate.
Yeah, he had a
Brad
license plate
Pitt.
on his
It
vehicle
ain't
that
Brad
said
Pitt.
it.
It's Ralph French from Sunfish, Kentucky.
I got a good story on that one, too.
Remember, PG.
I know.
So anyhow, we've got Ralph here tonight with us. He is, for all purposes, he's my uncle. Him and my dad were stepbrothers. But his mother and my grandfather were married long before I was, or I don't say long before, but before I was born. So, I mean, you were raised as I was raised as your nephew.
Yeah.
You all took care of me a lot as a kid and kept me on the straight and narrow best you could. Sometimes pushed me off the path a little bit other ways. So, Ralph introduced me to a lot of good movies growing up. Do you still have a big movie collection?
Yeah. Music, too.
Music, too. When I was a kid, Ralph introduced me to the classics like Ernest Goes to Camp, the Die Hard movie. He let me watch Die Hard before Mom would let me watch it.
Right.
And told me not to tell Mom.
Yes.
Just a lot of good movies growing up.
That's funny you say that. I've got a cousin, Chad White. I don't know if you remember Chad or not.
Chad.
You remember
He's
Chad?
come in here, yeah.
Yeah, he come down and stay with us about all through the summer. And we had a cousin, I won't mention her name, but she would always make sure that she would take us and do something fun while he was down. Go to the movies, mini golf, or whatever. And we talked her into taking us to see White Men Can't Jump.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but it's rated R.
Yeah.
And, of course, the language is the worst part of it.
Yeah.
But we're in there, and it is the Rosie Perez scene. And she leans up and looks across at us and says, "If you all tell me, we'll never go watch another movie again." And guess what? We didn't tell.
Yeah. Maxine's here just for the first time right now, isn't she?
Sorry, Mom.
You talking about movies. I'm going to tell you about one that's my favorite of all time in a way. It's called Soggy Bottom USA. It's on Amazon Prime right now. You can buy it there. But the dog makes the movie. There's a dog in there. I put this Sooner, I think, was his name, if I remember right. But it was one of the funniest movies I ever saw in my life. When I first watched it the first time, I laughed all the way through that thing.
You forgot to introduce him as a movie star. I remember Ralph being in a movie.
I'd
Blood
forgot
Hunter.
about
Blood
that.
Hunter.
Yeah,
Blood
I
Hunter.
forgot you were in a movie.
I was in the first 15 minutes of the movie, and the guy that made it, Bill Shrum, he's got dementia now, though, and everything. He said, "You was in it longer than anybody was, Ralph."
Ralph was in the first part of the movie, but then I think the sheriff drove his Bronco in the whole movie, didn't he? Wasn't that your little Bronco too? The sheriff
Yeah, that
drove
was my
in the
little
whole
Bronco
movie?
there they used, but
Was it a vampire? Was it vampire?
Vampire.
yeah,
Vampire.
But the
Ralph was
funny
fishing.
thing about it was I was working at Job Corps at the time, and one of the counselors come in there because I brought the movie out there to let the kids watch it. And one of the counselors said, "Ralph," he said, "they only watch your part and that's it. They keep laughing. They really want to watch your part and that's it. Where you get killed and everything." He said, "Now either you got a lot of kids out here like you, or you got a lot of them want to see you dead."
So you were born and raised here in Sunfish, right?
Yep.
What year were you born?
58.
58.
Yep.
And you went to school at St. John's.
Yeah, but I was born in Dr. Farmer's office over in Brownsville.
I think everybody was
Everybody
born.
in Sunfish
Yeah,
knew
but
that
we
era
lived,
was.
at the time, we lived in that little old brown house you sit down there by the Sunfish Bridge there.
How did that house not flood all the time?
It did.
Really? I remember as a kid.
Well, whenever the water got up, like it didn't get up a lot back in a way, but whenever it flooded up, yeah, it got up in the house there. And of course, the house was raised up, set up kind of high.
Yeah, it
see?
had no under. It was on pillar rocks, right?
Yeah, something like
Yeah,
that.
you could see
But
all the way under it.
Yeah, but they had it pinned, closed off there a bit, but you could still, the water would get under there. See, it was high up a little bit, but several times it flooded us out, and Daddy had to go swim down the creek to get the gas tank.
Really?
Bring them back down because the gas tank had floated off down there.
You know, I always wondered why that house was sitting like that out in that
Yep.
field. But if you look, the old crossing for the creek, it lined up perfectly with it.
Well, see, the old crossing, the road originally went down, I think, right in front of the house there. And you can still see till this day the old bricks to the old
Right,
bridge down
right,
there
you
in
can.
the bank on the far side there,
Yep.
see. But my grandpa's store used to sit there, right there by that old cellar,
Yep.
see.
That was the Duval Mercantile Company.
Yeah. And he sold moonshine back in the 30s out of the back of that store.
Oh, now Ralph JT wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, he did. Mom told on that. But he sold moonshine out the backside there while everybody was shopping up front there, whatever. If somebody wanted a little extra, they'd have to go outside, go around back, and meet him out back, and he'd hand it out the back door to them.
Yeah.
Are you saying Tilford on that
Yeah.
store?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was
Till
the,
right now.
the Duval Mercantile Company.
Yeah.
Can
That's
you
what-
remember What year Tilford died?
Oh, 90, early 90s?
Yeah.
Okay, so you probably remember.
Oh,
him
yeah,
good.
I remember Tilford
I don't.
well.
I just can't really remember him that well.
Yeah, he'd say boy, say.
I've heard that. That was his
Yeah,
byword.
Uh-huh. He and I don't know the exact story, but he was driving a truck, and I don't remember who he had with him, but he had log chains and boomers in the floorboard on the passenger side, and he run off the road, and that truck turned over, and they said that, whoever it was said those chains and boomers about beat me to death, and he said it rode completely over on its wheels. He said landed on its wheels, back out on the road, and he said, "Say boy, that's kind of rough." Kept on. They said that literally like never just didn't slow
Me
down.
and him one time went down to the cattle sale down there in Bowling Green, the old stockyards there. And he was going to get him a bull or something. I forgot exactly what. We sat there and watched every one of them run through. And he's sitting over saying, "Hey, I was going to bid on that fifth one back there. I was going to bid on that and forgot to." Well, we was coming back, though, down 185 there. And that old GMC of his, he had that old blue GMC. Well, he pulls out to pass somebody, and he just stayed in the left lane. going down through there. And this car coming at us, and I'm like, is he going to get over anytime soon here? You know?
That's before seatbelts, too.
Oh,
wasn't it?
yeah. Wasn't no seatbelts in there hardly. And finally, I about ready to say something. He jerked that truck over, and I about went over again. Him that slid over because he jerked so hard. He says, "Hey, Dick." He always called me Dick. Says, "Hey, Dick, we better get on the right side of the road." You couldn't have stuck your hand down between the driver's side door of his truck and the driver's side door of that big car. You could not have got your hand down in there at all.
Well,
Did he not used to drive cattle down the road? I've heard he's one of the last ones to have cattle drives in Sunfish.
We used to drive cattle down the road.
Did you?
Yep.
We used to drive cattle from that 40 or the farm over
That's
here
what I was
behind
talking
Senate's
to the Tilford place, as I call it.
No, we drive them up to the Martin farm.
Oh, to the
Yeah,
Martin
we
farm.
did John A's, and Mom was a lot like that.
Yeah.
back in the
Is
day.
that right?
Well,
Yeah.
I don't have a bunch of cows.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd get on the road and John A. get in the front with his old three-wheeler and a trough.
Bucket or something.
Or
or-
he'd have a trough,
Yeah.
and he
Now, John A. had a trained bull. I'll tell this one here, a trained bull. All he had to do was pull the cattle trail out there and holler for that bull. Come on. Have the door open, that bull, walk over, get in the trailer, know it was going to a different pasture with some fresh heifers.
that must have been different bull than what I was raised with, because I'm going to tell you what. We had bull one time. Do you remember the bull we had? It was a Maine Anjou bull. We had two of them. He drove up to Indiana and got those things, and they were huge. Their back, their tailbone was like 6
I
foot
want to
tall.
know, did he drive the white dually to get them?
I don't remember what he drove.
Because
up
if
there.
he did, it bound to took about 6 tanks of gas.
You know, I drove that thing from here to Elizabethtown one time, and it had the saddle tanks. It took one tank up there and one tank back. I mean, a bunch.
Yeah.
That's the reason whenever I redo it, it's going to get a diesel motor in it.
You got
Right
the
there.
truck?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
But, I forgot what I was going to say.
Maine Anjou bulls.
Oh, the Maine Anjou
6
bulls.
foot tall. At the,
He went up there. We had some cousins up there that raised those things.
Dale had one at one time, a Maine Anjou bull. It may have been one of them. He may have got it from
Well, he
John
went
A.
up there and got two of them, and they were, 800-pound calves when he went up there. And got back, and he bred those things to a bunch of them little, half Hereford Angus or whatever we had at the time, and we pulled calves and pulled because they throw a
just too
great
big.
big old calf. But we had one of them we called Satan.
We had one, John A. had one back in the day when I was young, called Satan.
Well, I think that's the reason we called this one Satan is because you all told us about how mean this one was.
The one, well, let me tell about the one, since you brought it up, I'll tell about the one that he had. But now, John A. had the farm there across what you got now, across from your house there. That's where he kept that bull in that field right across from your house. Now, for us kids to go swimming, we had to cross into that field where that bull was. And if that bull saw you in that field, he'd attack. Now, we figured out the best way to get around him to get to the swimming hole was we had to split up. And it was Kitsy, Patty, and all of us, we had swimming holes back there we all went to,
Devil's Pocket.
Devil's Pocket,
Yeah.
and there was one between Devil's Pocket and there was a small swimming hole down there right behind the barn. Down over that little bluff there was a small swimming hole we did down there some, but there was one at Devil's Pocket, and there was a big long one up there just between Devil's Pocket and there. And that was one where we found that was long and like we liked to swim in a little bit, and it was deep, a little deep. So that was the one we was going to at the time. That was one we always went to.
So when you crossed the field, you didn't necessarily have to be the fastest one, but you didn't want to be the slowest one.
No. But what we did was to confuse the bull, we'd split up. Half would go up toward Kyle's house along the road there, and the other half would cut along that fence along where the pond was behind the old barn there and go that way. And the bull didn't know which way to go. And he would wait to see who was going to start across the field. And half times we would start halfway across the field and turn around and run back just to get him chasing us. So the other group's watching to see the bull go that way, and then they'd start this way. Then the bull would turn around and go after them, and then the other group would start across like that. We kept that bull so dizzy, turning around. There's a few times, though, we got just across that gate, and boy, he hit that gate full speed, boy, after you. But the funny thing was, John A. had just bought a brand new GMC pickup, 3/4 ton, had a camper on the back of it and everything. So he took the camper off, was going to haul hay out there to the cattle. He goes out through there, and that bull attacked the truck. And when the bull got done, it totaled the truck.
Oh my goodness!
There wasn't a dent on that place. There wasn't a smooth spot on that truck anywhere. It was dented all to pieces. The next day, that bull went down market.
Well, that main Anjou he had, we called it Satan because somebody told us about that one.
We named him Satan, the one that we had.
And John A. go out in the field with him and scratch on him. There ain't nothing wrong with this bull. And as soon as John A. was gone, that bull would turn to the devil. I mean, now I saw a meme, a reel the other day. It said, "I hope you can run from one side of this field to the other in 12 seconds because our bull can do it in 10." And when I saw that, I thought because you could get in you could get in the field with that thing, and I mean, he was after you. And at first, we thought he was just playing.
Yeah.
He put a whooping on one of us one day, and there wasn't no play about it. We realized he was serious, and he would run through a fence, whatever. But John A. go out there and scratch on it. There ain't nothing wrong with this bull. you boys just been mean to him.
Y'all are aggravating him.
Yeah, John A. had the bluff on him, and y'all didn't.
You're talking about Devil's Pocket. That other swimming hole you're talking about. We used to cane pole that creek growing up.
Well, it's where Devil's Pocket is, and the creek comes down and around, and then it's a long straight stretch.
Yeah,
and that's where I'm
it's
talking
pretty
about.
deep water, or it used to be. I ain't been back there.
I call that the crossing because we crossed from that Wheatley bottom over that other bottom, and from there up, I think is where you're talking about. And it's still fairly deep. There's not a lot of Sunfish Creek that's deep anymore.
Right.
But that right there, it's still fairly deep. The kids go down there and they'll swim in that.
Well, the banks are real steep there.
Mm-hmm.
The banks beside the creek.
Mm-hmm.
They wasn't steep back then.
It's right there by the piece that you own.
Yeah.
Going up
But
through
you're
there.
talking about a lot of years
those
there.
banks are used to be tall and steep. And we would go down there and cane pole them, and we'd sit the cane pole up on the bank and just put a string on it to get into the water. We'd go back there and check at it 1 or 2 in the morning on the 4-wheeler. Well, I ain't going to say the person's name, but he lives up here at the end of the road I used to live on. He used to go with me, and I'd pull up there on the 4-wheeler, and I'd say, jump off there and grab that cane pole, see if it's got anything on it. Well, he'd get between me and the headlights, and I'd say, if you get between the headlights, you can't see what's on. Nobody had flashlights back in. Stand off to the side. Well, he kept doing it, and I thought, I'll fix him because he couldn't swim. He got between the edge of that creek. I put that dude in first, and I gave him a little bump one night. And it's about a 8 or 10 foot tall bank into that water, and then there's no getting back out of it, right? Yeah. I thought I was going to hook him for that cane pole, get him out of there. He thrashed, and I finally I said, stand up. He stood up, and it wasn't chest deep. Yeah. So you grew up in Sunfish. You said you went to St. John's until you told me earlier till the 6th grade.
Yeah.
And then you went to the
Sunfish.
the Sunfish school,
Yeah.
and then you ended up at Brownsville, right, to high school.
Yep.
And then did you go into the military right after?
Right after high school, put in the military first time.
What pushed you to go into the military? I mean, what was
Wasn't
the
no
thought?
jobs around here or nothing.
And what year was that? That was early 70s?
77.
77, like I said.
Wasn't no jobs around nowhere. But see, this is before internet and all this stuff, you got now. A job available to look up online and everything. Who you couldn't back in. You had to know.
Know somebody or...
Well, you had to know somebody, but what it is, if you didn't know one of your friends worked there, then you couldn't tell them who worked there because how would you know? You didn't know.
Yeah.
They would ask you, do you know anybody work there? Well, no. Well, I went down there when the Corvette plant first opened up, down there in Bowling Green around 1980. And I put in an application, and the security guard said, well, we can take your application, but there's 65,000 people ahead of you.
Wow.
I just took the application, threw it in the trash can. I said, I'll file F it for you. Walked out and never come back.
Yeah. So you joined the Army.
Yeah.
Where was your basic training at?
Fortsville, Oklahoma. And I actually, there's a place back there called Medicine Bluff. When Geronimo was kept the prisoner there, he had escaped from prison. And it's like a good, I want to say 200-foot drop down below. And the reason they call it Medicine Bluff because there's not a tree on the place nowhere's above there. But if you look down there over the bluff, there's all kind of trees and grass and everything growing down there on the river banks and everything there. And that's what the Indians thought that was great medicine. So to get away from the soldiers, Geronimo jumped his horse off that bluff and landed down in the river and got up on the horse and got it run off.
So the horse survived.
Yeah.
Huh.
Him both. About a 200-foot drop, but that's how bad he wanted to be free. He jumped his horse right off that bluff.
Wow.
Is that why when people take a big leap or something when they say Geronimo? I mean,
I guess.
Have you ever, that's a good.
Have you ever heard somebody do that? I'm
Yeah.
going to go
Geronimo.
bungee jumping or whatever.
Yeah, that's probably
That's where
why.
it came from, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say I've.
But I used to scare the crap out of the Job Corps kids over there in the White Coast. I'd tell them, I said, guess what my first job was when I got out of high school? They said, what's that? And I said, programming nuclear missiles. Oh, my God!
I had that feeling when you said that.
No, that was my job, though, I got in the old Lance nuclear missile program.
And were you stationed somewhere before?
I was stationed in Schaffenburg, Germany.
Well, I
after
remember
left
you being
Fort
in
Sill.
Germany as a kid.
Yeah, but I was stationed in Schaffenburg, Germany, and that was my job.
Now, when you say programming them,
Yep.
I don't.
Well, back
What you
then
did,
it was.
well,
I mean, like you had the numbers, or
He didn't
I'll
have.
go- I'll
He
go
didn't have
with
the
you.
did you
box.
have the phone?
know,
Did you have the
the
phone round?
there was a computer that hooked to the missile. Okay, now this computer was big. Like, it took two of you to carry it up on there. you
Right.
know. But to get the computer to work, you had to cycle it between on and off 3 times so you could warm the computer up to where it would work. Okay? And what you had to do was take a plate off of the warhead up there.
Wait a
and the
minute.
lieutenant
Is
would
this
reach.
classified?
No.
You need to be telling this. We don't want little black men running
No,
around
no.
suits. Okay.
But there's 3 dials up there, and he would read off the numbers, and you had to set each dial to that number. There's like 3 or 4 dials there, I don't remember exactly, and that was how you programmed the missile. See,
What town in Germany?
Schaffenburg.
What area in Germany is that?
It's close to Frankfurt.
Okay. Well, so when my earliest memory of you as a kid was you being in Germany,
Yeah,
and then you coming home,
yeah,
and you were out of the army for a little while, right?
yeah.
And so you go back for a second tour, or
88.
88.
Yeah,
And I remember you preparing to go back into the army.
yeah.
By running. How far were you running?
I was running from Mom's house to the Grayson County line, and then I would run back to the Sunfish Mall, and then I'd walk from there, walk it off, a little bit, walk from there. And I got to,
How far is that, you think, Kyle?
I don't know.
I was thinking around 8 to 10 miles, something
Total?
like that maybe.
Probably. I'd
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. I mean, that's good run.
But see, in the Army, you had to make a 2-mile run. And the best way to get ready for it is run further than that. See, because when I first started running, 1 mile about killed me.
Mm-hmm.
I'd run from Mom's to the St. John's Church, and I'm like, I'm dying here.
Quick trip on the other end of the house gets me these days.
But what I did was I run even in the wintertime. I would run with coveralls and big boots and everything on.
I remember that.
The weight is what built my legs up and everything. And I did it like 3 or 4 days a week, to get ready to go, because I was going back. I went in January is when I went in, so I wanted to be ready. Well, the first time we get out there to run, all these guys is like young. I'm like 30-some years old at that time, and all these other guys like 18, 19, they're going to smoke you, old man. Okay. I didn't say nothing because I knew what to expect. I'd already been through it before. So get out there to run the 2 mile. They take off sprinting down through there, and it's like a regular flat track we're running on. And they're sprinting. When they get to the first curve, they're all out of breath.
Yeah.
Here, I timed myself to run a 6-minute mile because 13 minutes was the max for me. You get 100. You get 100 points for that. I didn't make no other points after that. So I
It didn't
come out,
benefit you to run it fast,
I
did
just
it?
run right around them, kept on going, and I got done with my first lap. They still weren't even halfway done with their first lap. So I got started on my second lap, and come around, and they were just finishing the first lap they were starting the second lap, take it back, they were starting the second lap when I was coming up on the finish it. And I could have kept on going and passed them up again. If I'd have thought about it, I would have done it just for the fun of it. But they just crossed the starting line again when I come up on the finish line there, right behind them. Well, that evening we get back in the barracks up there, and I ain't gonna say word for word what the drill sergeant said.
PG rated.
Yep.
Probably can't.
A 30-year-old man. A 30-year-old man darn near lapped your.
Yeah.
And what he did, what happened was he turned and looked at me and smiled and walked out because I just made his job a lot easier right there.
Sure.
He put the target on my back.
You were the man to beat.
I was the man to beat at that time. And every one of them guys that said something about how bad they was going to beat me and everything walked by me and said, you ain't going to embarrass us like that again.
So when I remember you preparing to go back in. And
Yeah.
I didn't understand it at the time. I was 8 in '88.
Yeah.
But I mean, it seems like every time we would drive down the road, Ralph was running. He was like Forrest Gump.
Mm-hmm.
He was always a running.
Yeah.
And he would be running, and I remember you running in the coveralls and stuff.
Yeah.
And so you go back in '88, and what did you do on that? On that?
MLRS rocket artillery, air defense artillery is what it was. The MLRS, the big box thing that picked up, you see all them rockets shooting out.
Yeah.
That was my job. Now, I started out in the ammo section, though. We would haul the rockets to the launchers, and they'd load them up. But our job was to mainly load them up on them big Hemet trucks and big 8-wheel drive vehicles. And we would drop them off in a pre-selected spot to drop them off at where the launchers would come up. We'd just take off and leave once we dropped them off, and then the launchers could come up and pick them up. And they'd put them right in their launcher. And we had actually went out one day in a place in Grafenberg, training area over there. Steep hill. And this was the scariest ride I ever had in a way because I wasn't driving. I was the passenger.
It's a lot worse when you're a passenger.
Yeah.
Well,
I'd much rather
now
have on that
things-
wheel.
now them things had a Jake brake on them. See? And this old boy that was driving used up all the air coming down that hill, used up all the air for the air brakes. We didn't have no brakes. He's freaking out. I said, put the Jake brake on. He did. It ain't slowing down. I said, put it down in low gear. And he put it down in low gear, and it geared down. Everything starts going down. I said, now let the air pressure build up. I said, don't touch that brakes. Don't do nothing. Let the air build up. If you put the emergency brake on, when the air builds up, it'll pop the brakes right there. And it did. I said, now let the air build up. I said, from now on, don't ride the brake going down this hill, because if you kill me, I'm going to haunt you for the rest of your life. But it worked. It worked. And he said, oh, God, I didn't know how to do that. And he said, thank you for telling me. I said, thank you for not killing me.
So after you go in that second go round,
Yeah.
and you go back through the training and stuff.
Yeah, I had to go back through the training because if you've out over 5 years, you got to go back through the training.
What made you want to go back for a second run? Same thing, no jobs?
No
or?
jobs around. I'd worked for Tom and them for a while up there at the hog barns there, but they put me to driving a 10-speed Mack truck that I didn't really know how to drive that well. And after 3 rear ends getting replaced in it, and a lot of times it was the other guys was driving the truck when I wasn't driving it, but it'd always tear up when I drove it. And so they let me go, and I said, well, that's not a problem. They said, wait a minute. I said, I'll leave for the Army in 3 days.
They, after you went in that second go round, what you said was 88?
Yeah.
How long until the Gulf War started?
Gulf War started in 91, and I was planning on coming home for Christmas that year, but I had to call Mom and tell her that I wouldn't be coming home.
How'd that go?
Scared the hell out of her,
Yeah.
because you could have heard a pin drop on the other end of that phone line when I told her that they were sending me down there, our unit. And our colonel had kept telling us all along that they was not going to strip NATO to send down there. Not going to happen. Well, they did. And was this come back to where we was up in Grafenberg there, and he come up, he said, I'm going around personally tell everybody. I know I told y'all we weren't going to go. They weren't going to send us. He said, well, I got to tell you now, they're sending us. He said, I just want to know your thoughts about that. I looked over at him. I reached up in the truck because I was on road guard duty at that time. Because you had to close off the roads when there was live ordnance coming across the road. You had to put where nobody can drive under it, what's going on. And I looked at him. I had my M16 with me, and I said, sir, you get me close enough I can use this, I'll end it real quick. Because I said, if Saddam Hussein's standing right there, I'll drill him right in the head. He said, point well taken. Turned around, he saluted me and left. But I'll tell you this, when I had an incident with a whole battery of people that was coming by there to close the road, and it had a general, 2-star general, pull up there, and I told him, you can't go through right now, sir. You're going to have to wait. He said, okay. Well, they were on a time battalion RTAP, but we had the roads closed, so I told them this. I said, look here, we get told to open the road, you get everybody through here as fast as you can. Because if we get told to close the road, we got to cut your convoy off. And they, well, you can't cut us off, we're on time. I said, I'm telling you, get everybody through here fast. Because once you're through, they'll have to hold up until you get out of the way. I said, if you're not through, we got to cut you off. Well, they proceeded through 5 miles an hour through the roadblock and didn't do what I told them to. And guess what? They didn't get maybe 6, 7 vehicles through, got told to close the road. Well, here comes this corporal and his captain back up there, and they're screaming at me to get the truck out of the way. I said, I told y'all to get through here. And the other guy, the one I told you about driving over the hill, he was there with me. He wasn't saying a word. I'm standing there. I said, this truck ain't moving. You get your people out of the way down there. You can wait for them on the other side. We're going around them. Go around them. Well, this truck started to go around me. The sergeant started driving around me, and I slammed my hand on the hood of that truck. I said, you move another inch, and I'll see you court-martialed. He stopped right there. He wasn't moving. They didn't know there was a general sitting right over there watching everything. And our colonel, I forget his name right now, but at the time, he was one of the toughest guys you could ever want to meet. And I radioed and told them what was going on. And they told him, tell them to get them guys out of the way down there. Well, they wasn't moving. He said, tell them to sit right there. We'll fire right over their heads. Now, when them rockets get to where they're going, there's a charge in there that busts the warhead open and the bomblets spill out. Each bomblet's like the size of your thumb. But they'll blow a hole plumb through a motor. That's what they're designed to do, is take out vehicles. They bounce. They got a plastic stem.
They hit like a shotgun, is that what you're saying?
Basically, yeah. But there's this plastic stem on the back here, and what it is that stem touches the ground. That's what sets it off. If it even wiggles, it'll set it off. And but the vehicles, the Iraqi vehicles that got hit by this thing, looked like somebody stood there with a shotgun, about 1,000 rounds of deer slugs, and filled it full.
Yeah,
that's what it looks like.
Wow.
But they told them to tell them to sit right there. We're firing right over their heads. Well, there's these warheads popping off right over where we're at, and you hear the pop before you ever notice that the missile has done past you, the rocket's done past you. You hear the pop over here.
It's fine. Yeah,
it's done over there. Yeah. And but he was waiting for them when they got to the other side. And buddy, he ripped that captain a new you know what, and that Spec 4 you know what. The captain got a letter put in his file. He wasn't promotable after that. and that Spec 4 got something too for his shenanigans of trying to do what he did. They got tore up pretty bad.
Oh, yeah.
Now, when you're working those jobs like guard duty or whatever you said you were doing, rank doesn't matter at that point, does it? To an
No,
extent?
your orders matters.
Your orders are what matter.
Yeah.
I've heard Uncle Gene tell that back when
Now
he
you
was in
salute
there.
them. You salute them, but here's the case.
But you had the say on that road when that road was closed. It was closed.
You
It
were
didn't
in
matter.
charge. You were in charge. If I'd have let them through and something happened, it would have been me going to Leavenworth prison.
Right.
See, but I wasn't letting them through.
Mm-hmm.
And I stood my ground on that. You ain't moving. You know.
Well, I don't know if you know this or not, and you probably do. I'm sure she told you. But Martha recorded CNN 24 hours a day
Yeah.
the whole time that war was going on.
Yeah.
She had multiple VCRs set up, and when she would get home, she would keep one recording, and she had 2 TVs, and she would sit and fast forward through that looking for you.
Yeah.
You know, that's pretty
But
big
we
dedication.
weren't around where any cameras were, news
Right.
cameras were, none of that.
Well, I
See,
mean, she didn't know that because they were showing that war. They were live streaming that war.
I can remember that.
Yeah.
Do you
and
remember?
I'm going to tell you something. One thing I learned about being in that war: the safest place to be was on the front line, because on the front line you know where it's coming from. Back there in the rear, you don't know, because you got people that do guerrilla war tactics, stuff like that. You don't never know when you're going to get hit. And 28 people got killed in that warehouse down there when that Scud missile hit. So that Scud missile that got hit by a Patriot missile, but the warhead broke off and came down right through there where they were at and killed 28 people in there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They didn't even know. They didn't even know that it was coming.
It was just an accident almost, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I said, the safest place for you to be, right out there on the front line.
Well, the patriotism during that war was thick here too.
Oh yeah.
I remember we put. She had that. I don't remember what kind of bush it was, but it sit to the left of the house.
Yeah.
We put yellow ribbons with pipe cleaner.
Yeah.
Yellow ribbons all over it. You know,
American
people
flags.
had American
Yeah,
flags. It's not like that today. I don't feel like. You know.
Do you remember when Dad had that second back surgery when he had to have the turtle shell for him to walk around?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I remember.
Had the hospital bed in the living room, and that was during the time that you're talking about there. And I can remember watching, and I think it was Baghdad when it showed that night scene and all those
anti-aircraft
fire, and it just looked like huge bottle rockets for and they were just going across, and I was mesmerized. That's the first military action of my life, during that time that I can remember seeing, and we just sit there night after night, not as dedicated as Martha, obviously, but we watched
I think
that.
the country did that.
Well,
We watched that over and over and over.
at that time, right before Desert Storm started, me and my platoon sergeant had got into an altercation. He slapped me for something somebody else did. And I didn't take the kind of anybody slapping me at that time. You didn't do that. Well, he did. Well, I turned him in to the Inspector General now. But they couldn't do nothing until after the war was over with anyway. But to keep anything going on between me and him, they moved me out of the ammo section and put me to driving the fuel tanker. And that was the worst job you could get, because the
you tear the
first
rear
thing to take out was the fuel.
Did you tear the rear ends out of them too?
No.
I want to know. Hold on. I want to know. So, how tall are you?
6'2".
Okay, and
were you
I'm
six- I
sure.
mean-
I'm sure back then you were much of a man at 6'2".
He was a beast when I was a kid.
How
Ralph was
big
a
was this
physical
guy that
specimen.
smacked
He
you?
was,
Because
yeah.
I can't imagine anybody smacking
Well,
you.
see,
That's what.
Well, you don't understand. When you're lower rank, like private or specialist like that sergeant is the ruler in a way, sort of like a king on the kingdom, I guess, in a way. You didn't do nothing back to him.
But how big was he? Because I can't imagine like a
he
5'2"
was
guy
about the
smacking
same.
you.
He was about the same height I was, and everything.
Okay,
A little
all
bit,
right.
little bit heavier. Not
He
much.
said, "Bend over."
kneel down here.
Were you 6'2" back then? I mean, I know
Yeah.
people kind of shrink. I figure maybe you were a little taller than that back
No,
then.
I'm 6'2". But
You
like I
remember
said,
the
they
convertible?
moved me over to hauling fuel.
LeBaron.
Now, see, when you're hauling fuel, you're right up there with the launchers. You're right there on the front line where the action's going. You're right there. Now, the only difference is they have a rear area on the front line even. You have a rear area where they go up and do the firing, maybe 10, 15 miles away, whatever, 5 miles away, but then they come back, get fuel, resupply ammo and everything, do what they got to do, and then they go back out. But you're sitting right up there where you could sit there with a set of binoculars and watch them fire. And I took a camera actually and still got the pictures of all 36 launchers firing all at the same time. Now at nighttime, when that goes on, and it was going on, it looked like the world's largest fireworks display you ever saw in your life. You got constantly from this side to this side of the sky lighting up. You're like, holy
Mackerel.
I would not want to be on the receiving end of this stuff, you know.
A guy told me a couple years ago, well, actually, it's been a couple years ago now, that during the Gulf War, that some of the rockets they used, that they could shoot, I forget how many miles, and hit a target the size of a garage.
No, actually, the Lance missile, the old nuclear missile we shot, was so accurate that they could shoot the missile from 100 miles away and drop the warhead down in a pickle barrel.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, he said now with the technology that they can pinpoint it onto like a dime.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He said the technology. He said back then it was great. He said, but now he said you cannot believe the precision of the military now.
You can now.
He said you don't want the military shooting at you.
Oh,
now.
I'm sure.
You can now send a missile right through the window right there.
Yeah.
That's how accurate.
And some
it
of them
is.
don't make any noise or something like that.
Well, the Tomahawk cruise missiles are the ones that don't make much noise or nothing. They're slow.
Yeah.
But they're guided. See, they got a terrain following radar in the nose that guides them to the target. They'll hug the ground, go up and down with the ground, with the terrain and everything.
So they don't shoot like a bullet, just with an arch or flat.
No, they once they're airborne, the computer takes over, the radar takes over, and they drop down and they follow the terrain. And see, and that's the way they operate that way. That's when the Tomahawk cruise missiles first came out, was back during Desert Storm. Mm-hmm. Desert Storm to me wound up being,
I can remember the cruise missile.
But it wound up being a test for all the expended stuff they spent on defense.
The new weaponry.
Proof that it worked. See, GPS, that's where GPS got invented at. See, but we couldn't use GPS out there too good because there wasn't nothing to.
You're in the desert.
You're in a desert. Flat. What are you going to. There's no landmarks.
Right.
There's one mountain range in the whole darn country down there. Yeah. One mountain range, that's it.
So were you still in when the war ended?
Yeah.
Where were you? Where were you at when you heard it ended? Do you remember?
What, Desert Storm?
Yeah, I mean, where were you?
I was there.
Well, yeah, I know, but I mean, were you on
300-something miles out in the middle of the desert?
And so somebody radioed and said, "Hey, the war ended," or how did that go?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, what happened was we got told to, when they finally, the last day, there was, we got put on alert because there was still some shooting, stuff going on. And
so they didn't get
then
the memo.
They come over the radio for everybody to stand down. And we'd been up for 80-some hours straight, no sleep. And the first sergeant said, 50% alert. Half of you, what's essential to wake up if you ain't working, hit the sack. We didn't put tents up or nothing. We just pitched the cots right there by the bed, and down we went. Right there, knocked out, bad. That's how bad it was in a way. You try running for 80 hours, no sleep. See what happens.
It ain't happening around here.
Did you ever not hear Uncle Gene tell about when they'd heard that World War II ended?
No.
they was out on the boat, and of course...
he's in Navy, wasn't he?
Navy, yeah. And really no, communication was slow back then, but they come over the loudspeaker or whatever, and signed the treaty. War's over. Hoorah! He said it went about 10 or 15 minutes. Battle stations, battle stations. He said the guy right outside him said, "Damn lying son of a."
But I'll tell you one.
But I mean, it did. It just took time for your forces to know that.
Well, see, back then
it was over. The treaty was signed. Those had already left out, and
back then they had what you call telecommunication on there, teletypes and stuff. See, so stuff would get sent out on the air back then, but they had the equipment to pick that up. It's like telegraph wire, what it was in a way. But they would get the signal out in code to the ships, to the admiral, and then the admiral would get on the speaker and tell the ship personnel what was going on. See, that's how they did it back then and everything. But nowadays, I mean, when we heard about it, we was out there, like I said.
Were you all in Kuwait, or did you actually go into Iraq?
We were my unit. We were assigned to the 1st Armored Division. The 1st Armored Division was that big left hook that come up between Baghdad and Kuwait. We were part of that, and we were setting up on what they call Tap Line Road, which was the road between Kuwait City and Basra. And I always said this: we turned Tap Line Road into the Valley of Death, the Highway of Death, the Highway of Hell in a way. Because them launchers, like I said, you get a fixed target. 100-meter grid square, basically, is what they call it. You look at it, all the military maps are divided up in grid squares, 100 meters. Those launchers, one launcher can take out a grid square. Easy. They put it on the computer, the grid square, and it'll shoot one rocket. Then the box will move a little, it'll shoot another rocket, and the box keep moving until all 12 are gone. It'll take out any vehicle that's a truck, vehicle like that, and it won't a tank, but it will everything else. Light armored vehicles, it'll take them out. Anything within a football field, 5 football field lengths, whatever that 100-meter square covers, is destroyed. Anybody standing above ground is dead. Now, we hit one area there was 3,000 Iraqis in. By the time we got done hitting them, there was only 20 survivors. And those were the guys that were down in the bunkers at the time. They're bunkers. That's the only reason they lived. See, it was
war.
Yeah. But the only to me, and I've told a few people this way, but to me, when it was over with, we got to tour some historical sites over there, actually. And I got to go to the ancient city of Ur. It's the home of Abraham. I stood in the man's house, and his house was not much bigger than y'all's bathroom back there. That was it. The way they could tell that the British dug it up, the city up in 1927. And what they told us was the British took out 28 tons of solid gold artifacts out of that site. 28 tons of gold.
Wow.
That's a bunch.
And they had now there, if you were royalty or nobility of any kind, when you died, they didn't bury you in the ground. They buried you in the city walls. They built a wall with your body, and your body helped protect the city in a way. You could walk through the city and see bone fragments sticking out of the walls there. See, and they, but that's what they believed back then. Now, there was an altar, sacrifice altar out there too, that they believed the higher you were off the ground, the closer you were to heaven. But now you could walk up, and that sacrificial altar was like pretty high up there. You had to walk a good little bit to get up to the top of it. But when you got up there, you could see blood stains still all over the brick.
Where it had been used.
Where it had been used for animal sacrifice and human sacrifice.
Human, really?
Yeah, they would sacrifice slaves even there.
Wow.
And you could see all that, and you're like, holy cow. You know, you were like...
Makes Sunfish seem like a good place to go, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
So when you got out, after all that, you come home.
Yeah.
And then I remember, did you go straight to work for the Job Corps after that?
No, but I went and put in for application to go over there, but they didn't call me there for a while. But I was just waiting, finally went to go. Got over there and got the job, And I worked down residential living. It's where I worked at. And the funny thing was, every time the kids went out in the woods, they'd send me out there to chase them out.
Yeah, I remember you having to go wrangle some.
Yep.
And that's the woods back there. That's wilderness where that's at.
Back then, though, I had my old Army fatigues was all I had. Of course, that's what the Job Corps kids dressed in. But I hadn't got my clothes, my original stuff back yet. See, I didn't have much, as far as that. So I'd wear my old Army shirt. I'd still have blue jeans on or something, but I'd wear my old Army shirt or something, I'd be standing there right among the kids, and they didn't even know that I was standing there until open up. I was standing right there among them. And this one kid, I remembered him real easy because the idiot had on a blue shirt and a pair of orange trunks. And he comes out of the bay over there where he's at. Oh, I wasn't back there. I said, yeah, he was getting off us. I wasn't back there. I swear I wasn't back there. I said, you swear you wasn't back there? Yeah, I wasn't back there. I said, why is it you still wearing the same clothes you had on back there then? You're in here now with them on. Because everybody else run and changed their clothes real quick, so he didn't. Busted him right there.
Now, you retired from over there. How many years did you work?
21 years there.
21 years.
Yeah.
I know you were over
there. And they tried to fire me every day I was there.
You were talking about Ralph's physicality. I guess probably the first time I ever met Ralph was when you come back that second time. I didn't really know you a whole lot then because we didn't move up here till 88, 89 or something like that. But I remember I don't guess you were working yet, probably, or maybe waiting to hear from Job Corps or something. But we were back there behind the house where the hog house is in that field. And Dad was shelling corn, and I think Emery was pulling wagons or something like that. And I guess what was them wagons we had? Probably like 150, 75 bushel wagons. They weren't real big, They just and Emery come backed up there to load up one of them wagons, and he liked just this much or whatever getting to it. And he started to get back up on the tractor, and Ralph's like, I got it. And he goes around and pushed that gravity wagon up there where he can put the pin in. I'm like, who is this guy?
Yeah, it's Mr.
I'll tell you,
My gosh.
Since Kyle brought this one up, I'm gonna tell one on
Ralph
Kyle.
said he's 6'2". He got
He
18 inches from his neck up. Ralph, I believe he was like 6'6" back then. The best I remember.
Yeah, see, back in summertime work was hauling hay or putting up tobacco and everything. I always worked on the ground. I didn't get up in the barn because I had 2 collapsed lungs when I was a kid. Barn, I couldn't do it.
Couldn't breathe.
So I worked outside. I was always throwing stuff up. I could pick up a square bale of hay and throw it 14 ricks high on the wagon.
I believe it. Yeah.
And what I'd do is I'd put it up on my shoulder and just put it up like that.
Yeah.
Or something. Or stand there and hold it up even, to get it up there to him and everything. But I'm going to tell this one on old Kyle here. This is back when Kyle was just
Please do.
Yeah.
You have our attention.
Yeah, this is Kyle. This is back when Kyle was just a little kid.
Hey,
be gentle, Ralph.
G-rated.
You be gentle.
It is. Now, they were combining wheat. Have been out there, and they baled the straw up, in the straw bale. Me and Guy Durbin was out there to get some straw. And me and Kyle, I was over joking around with Kyle a little bit while there was Gene Autry and DJ Miller standing there. And I don't remember if your dad was there or not. He might have been, but every little bit you'd see a little pile of wheat there on the ground spilled, where the auger spilled it or something, a little bit. And Kyle looked at that, and he kicked that around. He said, you know what? If they had to pay for that, they'd get that up. I walked over there and told Gene and DJ, I said, boys, y'all better pray to God he ain't never y'all's boss, because I can see it now. One of you out here with a dustpan and the other with a broom, because y'all going to be getting that weed up.
Shot back. We refer to that as white tight.
When he said Gary, he didn't remember if Gary was there or not. I was going to say Gary wasn't there. There was way too many people standing around. I heard that story.
Tell about what Kayla put on Facebook about Brooks the other day.
Yeah, so Kyle's little nephew.
Have you met Kayla's boy Brooks yet?
No.
Oh,
Okay.
he looks like Kayla when she is.
He
little.
is Gary made over.
looks
right
like
there.
Gary,
Gary.
yeah.
So
Kayla.
it was his birthday, wasn't it? the
Birthday.
other
Yeah,
day?
he
And
turned he turned 5 just a few days ago.
Your sister,
My sister's little
Little
boy.
boy.
she had a little boy.
Yeah, he turned 5 the other
Heck,
day.
she's about ready to have another one, isn't
Close.
she? Boy or girl?
Boy, another
Like
little
she
boy.
told us, but I couldn't remember.
Yeah. But anyway, going to be his birthday, and she asked him what he wanted to take to school to share with his class for his birthday.
Yeah.
And he said, "How about I?"
She said
just-
donuts
Yeah,
or
she said
cupcakes.
Cupcakes, donuts, you know what? He said, "How about I just get some of the teachers' fruit snacks and pass them out to my friends, and that way we don't have to spend any money." that white passes right on down,
Yeah,
don't it?
white tight.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening.